Hey, it's Cliff. This is the last topic. So we're going to talk about project completion, right? So this is the closeout phase. So every project needs to end, and that's what project completion or the closeout is all about in the last phase of the project life cycle. The whole point of the project is to deliver what you promise. By delivering, you said you would, you make sure that all stakeholders are satisfied and all acceptance criteria have been met. Once that happens, your project can end. So today we're going to talk about the contract closure, lessons learned, final reporting, and then document archival. So the end is near. Project completion is often the most neglected phase of the project lifecycle. Once the project is over, it's easy to pack things up, throw some files in a drawer, and start moving right into the initiation phase of the next project. Hold on, you're not done yet. The key activities in project completion are gathering project records, disseminating information to formalize acceptance of the product, service, or project, and performing project closure. As the project manager, you'll need to review project documents to make certain they're up to date. For example, perhaps some scope change requests were implemented that changed some of the characteristics of the final product. The product information you are collecting during this phase should reflect the characteristics and specifications of the final product. Don't forget to update your resource assignments as well. Some team members will have come and gone over the course of the project. You need to double check that the resources and the rules and responsibilities are noted. Once the project outcomes are documented, you'll request formal acceptance from stakeholders or the customer. They're interested in knowing if the product or service of the project meets the objectives the project set out to accomplish. If your documentation is up to date, you'll have the project results to hand them and share with them. Also note, if your project for whatever reason gets canceled, right? So funding is removed or the project just doesn't get finished, the project will move from whatever phase it is into the closeout, right? So if the project is to be canceled, you move right into the closeout phase and you go through the closeout documentation in the same way you would even if the project was a success. You review with your stakeholders, you review with the project sponsor about what was accomplished or not accomplished, and you provide the documentation as the project manager, whether, again, if the project was canceled or not. So let's talk about contract closure. So one of the purposes of contract closure process is to provide formal notice to the seller, usually in written form, that the deliverables are acceptable and satisfactory or have been rejected. If the project or service does not meet the expectations, the vendor will need to correct the problems before you issue a formal acceptance notice. Before the contract is closed, any minor items that need to be repaired or completed are placed on a punch list, which is a list of all the items found by the client or team or manager that will still remain to be done. This is common in construction, dents in the wall, paint that's not quite finished, or parts of the wall that need to be repainted. It could be concrete that hasn't formed correctly. These items would be called a deficiency. And the deficiency goes on a punch list for the contractor or subcontractor to come in and clean them up. The project team will then work on all of the items on the punch list, building a small schedule to complete the remaining work. If the work of items on the punch list is too large or the amount of work is significant, the project team continues to work on the project. Once the punch list becomes smaller, the project team begins to closing down the project, maintaining only enough staff and equipment to support the team that is working on the punch list. Very common in a construction project at this stage in the closeout phase that a lot of the contractors leave, but there may be a couple that, again, that have a lot of deficiencies left over. Typically in construction, such as a building, you're going to see electrical contractors are usually left behind, usually doing lighting, some of the wiring that needs to be done, could be a safety system that needs to be hooked up, usually a painter or a drywaller that needs to, say, finish some of the interior work. A lot of the exterior work is already completed, so those guys have already left and gone. If the project or service does meet the project's expectations and is acceptable, formal written notice to the seller is required, indicating that the contract is complete. This is the formal acceptance and closure of the contract. It's your responsibility as a project manager to document the formal acceptance of the contract. Many times the provisions for the formalizing acceptance and closing the contract are spelled out in the contract itself. This is usually saying you've specified X amount of lights in a room or X amount of lights in a building. You can go around and count them all. There should be that many. All right. That's how formal a lot of these contracts will get to. The final payment is usually more than a simple percentage of the work that remains to be completed. Completing the project might involve fixing the most difficult problems that are disproportionately expensive to solve. So the final payment should be large enough to motivate the vendor to give the project a high priority so that the project can be completed on time. Before the team is dissolved and begins to focus on the next project, a review is conducted to capture the lessons that can be learned from this project, often called a lessons learned meeting or document. The team explores what went well and captures the processes to undertake why they went well. The original schedule of activities and the network diagram are compared to the actual schedule of events. Events that cause changes to the schedule are reviewed to see how the use of contingency reserves and float mitigated the disruption caused by those events. The original estimates of contingency time are reviewed to determine if they are adequate and if the estimates of duration and float were accurate. These activities are necessary for the project team to develop expertise in estimating schedule elements in future projects. They are not used to place blame. A review of budget estimates for the cost of work scheduled is compared to the actual costs. If the estimates are frequently different from the actual costs, the choice of estimating method is reviewed. This is similar to what you're doing in assignment 4. You're used ChatGPT as an estimate tool. You've then done the actual costs, and now you're going to add in budget costs, and we can do a comparison to see how good of a tool was this for estimate. After the project is finished, the estimates of risk can be reviewed and compared to the events that actually took place. Did events occur that were unforeseen? What cues existed that may have been allowed the team to predict these events? Was the project contingency sufficient to cover unforeseen risks? Procurement. The performance of suppliers and vendors is reviewed to determine if they should be included in the list of qualified suppliers or vendors. The choice of contract for each is reviewed to determine if the decision to share risk was justified and if the choice of incentives worked. Finally, relationships with the client are reviewed and decisions about including the client in project decisions and alignment meetings are discussed. The client is given the opportunity to express satisfaction and identify areas in which project communication and other factors could be improved. Often a senior manager from the organization interviews the client to develop feedback on the project team performance. The documents associated with the project must be stored in a safe location where they can be retrieved for future reference. Signed contracts or other documents that might be used in tax reviews or lawsuits must be stored. Organizations will have legal document storage and retrieval policies that apply to project documents and must be followed. Some project documents can be stored electronically. The following are documents that are typically archived: charter documents, scope statement, original budgets, change documents, executive summary, also lessons learned. So this is the summary of what we just covered. So all contracts are signed off and closed. This is typically done between vendors, or it could be between stakeholders and vendors. Lessons learned are documented. So what was learned during the process of going through all the work? Again, this is an objective of assignment 4, of the final project, not assignment 4. Final reporting goes to management, right? So any of the final reports needs to be delivered to the management, either by electronic means or by paper. And project documents are archived. A lot of times when you're finished a project, a lot of paper is still printed, and they actually look a lot like the image that is on the screen. They become in binders of all the equipment or all the submittal packages that you would have given to the owner as you were developing, if it was a building or whatever structure that you're putting in place. Again, if you have any questions about this chapter, please let me know either by email or through Teams. We're going to continue on with the Green Oasis project. So this is the park project. Here we're going to look at the lessons learned. All right, so again, with the overview of the project, the Green Oasis Park project aimed to transform a 2-acre lot in the city of Willowville into a community park. The project encompassed landscaping, infrastructure development, playground installation, and various amenities to create a vibrant and sustainable public space. So let's look at some of the lessons learned. So early and thorough stakeholder engagement. So the lesson, engage stakeholders early and comprehensively to gather diverse perspectives and expectations. The impact, early engagement helps in understanding community needs, reducing potential conflicts, and aligning project goals with stakeholder expectations. The next is realistic timeline planning. So the lesson, set realistic project timelines considering unforeseen challenges and external factors. The impact, overly optimistic timelines can lead to rushed work, compromising quality and causing unnecessary stress on the project team. Flexibility and budget. So the lesson, allocate contingency funds for unforeseen expenses and scope changes. The impact, unforeseen costs such as changes in regulations or unexpected site conditions can strain the budget if not adequately planned for. Community-focused project management. The lesson, prioritize community engagement and involvement throughout the project. The impact, a community-focused approach fosters positive relationships, ensures community needs are met, and enhances the overall success of the project. Detailed record keeping. So lesson, maintain detailed records of project activities, decisions, and outcomes. The impact, comprehensive documentation facilitates post-project analysis, audits, and provides a valuable resource for future projects. And finally, these are some of the practice problems. I hope you download the PowerPoint and try them out. These should help you for the quiz that's coming up.